Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know that this is my series in which I use tarot and oracle cards to explore topics related to living the intentional life. And I have a spread laid out for us, but before we go into that spread, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had difficulty making a decision? Have you ever been faced with two or perhaps more choices that seemed equally good for different reasons? Perhaps there were two vacations. Let's go with vacations. Two vacations that you could go on. And one of them sounded interesting because there was wonderful architecture and there were opportunities to see beautiful art and eat delicious food. And on the other hand, there was another vacation where you could meet interesting people that and there were people who would want to go with you. You could have an adventure with your friends in perhaps a less structured environment, with more nature involved, maybe a beach and a forest. But you are interested in both things. You're interested in spending time with your friends, but maybe not so much in the nature. Or you could go and see the things you're really interested in, but you'd probably have to go on your own. Or it could be the other way around. Yeah, your friends all want to go to the city and see the museums, but you want to go off and take a ship to a desert, to an island that's fairly uninhabited. Now, you could go with the friends you love, or you could go do something that you really want to do. Have you ever had to make a choice like that? Or maybe it's the opposite end of the spectrum. Maybe there are choices that they're all equally terrible. Yeah? This one is horrible because of this, that one is horrible because of that, and you don't know what to do, and you feel like you have to make a choice. Have you ever confronted that kind of situation? I think we all have if we are adults. We've all had to make those kinds of decisions. They might have been more difficult when we were younger, perhaps teenagers. I know I had a difficult time making choices when I was a teenager, but every so often there will be a choice that comes up that seems very difficult for us. And this week's Tarot and Oracle spread is going to help us explore that situation when living an intentional life. Because even when living an intentional life, choices are made. Some unconscious. Yeah, we make choices every day of our lives. We see something that we love and we choose to have more of it. We see something that we don't love, that we find disagreeable, and we choose something else. Whether it's a conscious choice or an unconscious choice, we make another choice, and we put that choice out on our powerful river of intention, and if we open ourselves up to intention, we move more quickly towards it. Or if we close ourselves off, we move very slowly, and sometimes we bump up against things that we don't particularly like on the way. So, when living an intentional life, we want to be open, we want to be free, we want to make our choices as consciously as we can, or be conscious of when we are making choices. And so if we come up against choices that are difficult to make, we could make the choice to close down, which is not advantageous to living an intentional life. So we've got a spread that is going to help us work our way through this this tangled web. So friends, let's take a look at the spread. This is a beautiful spread based on the Ace of Discs from the Tarot of the Holy Light by Christine Payne-Towler. And I gave a description of how I came upon this spread in the video from last week. So if you haven't seen that, you might want to check it out. It would be in the first 10 minutes of the video. So I'm not going to go into how I came upon this spread, but I will give you a general outline of this beautiful spread of beautiful cards. And if you're interested in the cards and the creators, there will be a short video at the end of this video that gives you that information. So stay tuned to the end. But this spread, again, is based on the Ace of Pentacles. And the Ace of Pentacles has, Ace of Discs. My Rider-Waite-Smith tradition is leaking out. So this is not a Rider-Waite-Smith based deck. This is based on a continental tarot system, an older system than the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Smith-Waite deck, which comes out of the Golden Dawn tradition, which came on the scene in the very, very end of the 1800s to the beginning of the 1900s. Now this tarot deck is based on an older system, an older tradition of tarot. And the Ace of Discs, not Pentacles, the Ace of Discs, has a disc in the center with this eye of perhaps the divine peering through into the material world. So, the center of that spread, of the spread you just saw, was that disc, only in square form. I squared the circle. So that gives us the main message from the main deck of this spread. And then the Ace of Discs card also had a dark section at the bottom with 3 flowers or 3 seeds. And that's the earth. And there was a section of blue sky with white clouds at the top. That's the air. And so we had in this spread 3 cards at the bottom representing the earth, the material realm, and 3 cards at the top representing the air, our realm of mind, of intellect. And then on either side of the disc in the original card, there are 2 flowers. And in this spread we have 2 oracle cards, giving us complementary advice for this overall spread. So that's what you just saw. It's a beautiful spread, beautiful decks. Again, if you want to know about the decks, there will be a video at the end of this video, and in the description box below, there are links so that you can go to check out the decks and perhaps order one or all of them if you're interested. At the time of this video, the creator of the Tarot of the Holy Light, which is the central deck, is having trouble with their website. So if you have any trouble getting to that site and you're interested in getting that deck, leave a comment below or connect with me on Facebook and send me a message, and I will pass on to the creator your interest in getting the deck. So I'm here for your service. Just remember, those links are not for my financial gain. I don't get any money if you use those links. They're just for your convenience. So we saw the spread. We're going to dive into the central section, the 4 cards in the middle of the spread, which is the main message of the entire spread. Let's take a look at those 4 cards. This is a beautiful deck. It's a wonderful deck. I highly recommend it. And it's an expansive deck. It's expansive in that it expands our perception of what we are looking at. It gives depth to what we are looking at. There's a lot in each card. But it also expands our knowledge of tarot in that with the guidebook, there is a lot to study in each card and in the deck as a whole, which is the reason why I've continued to use this deck for quite a while. I started off with a 50-day deep dive into the deck itself as a single unit of a series of videos. And then I did a month with the deck in a larger spread. This is my 2nd month with the deck in a larger spread. And I think I'm going to continue for a while, using this deck in the center and pairing other decks around it. So, what did we have? I laid these cards out from upper right around in a clockwise fashion, and that's the way I'm going to read these cards in this spread, because there don't seem to be any indications that I should read it in another way. Does that make sense? So what did we see? We saw the Two of Swords. We saw the King of Swords. Interesting, yeah, two swords right next to each other. Then beneath that, in reverse, we had the Strength card, a trump, and then right next to it, another trump, the Hierophant, only upright. So that's the order we're going to be reading these in, and that's the order in which the message seems to be the clearest, the most clearly presented. So we'll start with, you'll notice, by the way, that there is a lot of Martian energy here. When I say Martian, I don't mean aliens. I mean the planet Mars. Yeah, this deck, the Tarot of the Holy Light, is based on, like I mentioned, the continental tarot system, which associates astrology very strongly with tarot, in addition to the Tree of Life, very strongly associated to the tarot. And the Hebrew letters are also very strongly associated to this deck of tarot, which is why I say this is a very expansive deck. It asks us to really expand the way we perceive tarot and the information that we access when reading it. So we have the Martian energy in many of the cards here. And we start with the Two of Swords. Now the Two of Swords, let me show you the card upright. Can you see it? I hope the camera is focusing. I can't see what you're seeing. I hope the camera is focusing on it. It's a beautiful card. It's a deeply, it's an intricate card. There's a lot that we can see in this one card. And we see two opposite pairs, right? There was male and female pair at the top and bottom. In the green orb and the purple orb, there were two male and female figures which are standing beside a world, a planet, with a caduceus in front of it and a crown on top. There are two arms reaching out. One, a very light arm in the light, holding a sword pointing down, and one arm, darker, in shadow, with a sword pointing up. So there is a lot here, and we're going to start with the association. This card is Saturn in Aries. I'm sorry, in Libra. Aries. Martian. Saturn in Libra, which is not the most comfortable match, right? And in an upright position, Saturn is harsh, right? Sharp, boundaries. Libra is balancing things. So there's that boundary between the things that are being balanced. And there's a kind of harsh line to this, which a lot of us read in the Two of Swords, in the Smith-Waite deck, for example, as the woman with the two swords crossed, blindfolded, yeah, difficulty making decisions, hard decisions, catch-22, stalemate, those kinds of ideas. We get some of that harshness in this card as well. But we don't get the idea of not being able to make decisions, just that there are two sides that we want to consider. Another association for this card is Venus in Scorpio. Scorpio is where we get our first taste of Martian energy. Now, Scorpio is one of the domiciles of Mars, right? It's the more shadow, the night, the nocturnal side of Mars. Perhaps the bitchy side of Mars. Being a Scorpio, I can say that. I've got a Scorpio ascendant, so yeah, Mars in Scorpio can be a little bit bitchy and it's not a short-term bitchy like an Aries, but a long-term bitchy. We can hold on to our grudges when we get them because it's a fixed sign, right? So we've got Venus, this beauty, bounty, art in this kind of harsh, watery, yet Martian environment. And so this is Venus in the house of her mate Mars. One of the houses of her mate Mars. And this is the meeting of opposites. This is Venus in her mate's house, which can be uncomfortable. It's not a prison. It's not something that she can't handle, but it does need to be handled. Yeah, Mars has Mars's house laid out the way Mars likes it, and Venus generally, as her own characteristics, likes something different, is more at ease in bounty and beauty and Taurus energy, for example. Taurus environments. But now she's in Scorpio, which can be a little bit difficult. So it means for this card, things might be difficult right now, but we want to keep a long-term view of things. Because that's the direction we're moving in. And remember, swords, air, it's thought and it's also vision. It's having a long-range view. It's having an open, a clear view when things are working well. And that's what we want to maintain in this card, the clear, open, long-term view of the direction we want to be moving in, which can be difficult right now because we've got these two swords that are being held up on either side of us. And that reminds us of the tree of life, the two opposite pillars of the tree of life, one of them being the mother pillar, yeah, the sword facing down, the pillar of severity, where the energy flows down into Malkuth, which is severe, it's harshness. And then we have on the other side, the sword pointing up, the energy flowing up. We look up in mercy for divine assistance from Malkuth back up to Keter. So we've got one severity looking down, we've got one sword of mercy looking up. So we want to be able to find a meeting of those two, the central pillar of the tree of life. So there are opposites here, but there's a magnetism between opposites, right? Positive and negative poles on magnets draw together. And that's the challenge or the ask in this card, is to bring those opposites somehow together, to draw them together. Though there is an apparent external conflict, we want to learn how to negotiate that somehow. We want to be diplomatic. Now, it could be a personal choice of I want to choose between this or that, or this card can also indicate opposing forces in the external world that we want to be in the middle, negotiating between, bringing them together with careful communication, with diplomacy. But again, it could be an internal conflict. I want this, I want this. The push me, pull you of internal indecision may ask for a little internal diplomacy, a little internal careful communication, of not going harsh on either or both possible choices. This internal conflict may be telling us that because neither one of them are exactly the fullness of what we really want, maybe it's showing us that we want to find a third choice. The third possibility. The middle path. The path in the center going up to or connected with Keter to Malkuth. Which is not necessarily down or up. It's the clear connection, the clearer connection. So that's where we're starting. We've got these two potential choices. And again, they could be two forces, two people, two interests in the outside world that are in conflict, and we find ourselves in the center. Or wanting to be in the center to find that middle path, that middle ground of communication. But it could be an internal thing. It could be us wanting to make a choice, feeling the desire to make a choice, feeling that we're called to make a choice somehow. And the two of them pulling us in opposite directions may be showing us that we want to be a little careful, a little internally diplomatic, choose how we are describing the choices, and see how they could be pointing us to a third central path of a different choice, perhaps one that's not as obvious. And then we move into the King of Swords. Look at this beautiful, beautiful being. I love the kings in this deck. The kings here are just gorgeous. So the King of Sword, look at that. There's a, what do we see? A little, very different from a Smith-Waite deck, which would have a king seated in a throne with a sword and clouds and birds. I think the King of Sword has birds above their heads. This king does not have birds flying. This king has 4 winds around them. Do you see the 4 winds? This king also has a large disc around their head with words in it. And the words in that deck, I've got them written out for me here. The master of alchemy and making the one out of the 4 elements to make the one. So, mastering alchemy is making the one out of the 4 elements. Yeah, to make one out of them. So we got 4, when we think of the 4 elements, what are they? Air, fire, water, earth, right? And then there's the 5th element, spirit, in the center, our willpower, which uses those 4 elements to create. That's alchemy in one way. I mean, that's one description of alchemy. It's not the best, it's not a full description, but that's one way of conceiving an alchemical process. In one way. So, this king does that. This king has the power to bring the 4 elements together to make the one. The 4 winds. Also, this king is a mediator. Now, like most kings of swords, he's a mediator. He is Aries. Aries, an Aries sign, right? An Aries that sees into the future, that sees the direction they want to go, that sees and is able to communicate new ideas, fresh ideas, and mediate between parties, mediate between conflicting sides of self as well. Helping those in conflict build common ground, certainly, but also our internal conflicts. This king can build common ground within self to find harmony within as well as without. This king is able to listen deeply and watch closely and speak last. Yeah? Perceives what's going on, hears what people are saying. All that air, right? All that communication. And then finally, when the truth appears clear and understandable, then the king speaks. What do a lot of us, have you noticed that a lot of us do this? What? We speak, and then when somebody else is speaking, what do? We're getting ready for our next speech event, rather than really deeply listening to what is happening around us, to what the people are saying, to what is below the words the people are using, what is behind the words the people are using. We don't get a full picture. This king does. This king listens, brings in the information, not just the surface, but deep information, processes it, does the alchemy before communicating the new idea. This king is also informed by the past, but has a long-term view. Again, like the 2 of Swords, a long-term view, bringing opposites, bringing things together that are in apparent conflict. And this king is sensitive to inner motives, their own inner motives, and the inner motives of those around them, which helps them to make the most accurate, the clearest, the most truthful pronouncements, decisions. this king can decide. And this king can find that third path. So how do we find that third path? That third path that perhaps was indicated in this card, the Two of Swords? By doing all those things, by listening deeply, listening below the surface. Being aware of the past and our long-term vision of where we want to go, where our powerful river of intention is going. The way to negotiate this is this. It is the King of Swords, which is wonderful. So that could be the complete answer. But the spread is also wanting us to be a little bit careful, because we did have that Martian energy, right? We had Venus in Scorpio. And now we come up to strength reversed. Let me show you strength upright here. This is a very impressive card, I think. This is a card that unnerves me in some ways, which is good, because being unnerved by this card, I think, is beneficial. Being unnerved by strength is beneficial. We see the actual power. Yeah, in Smith-Waite deck, what do we see? We see a lovely woman in a flowing gown with a wreath of roses perhaps in her hair, and she's with her lion. Her lion is very, very friendly, familiar. They look like they could almost be playing. Like she's scratching the lion's head and putting her hand in the lion's mouth, and the lion seems to be getting off on it. A very, very pastoral, beautiful scene. The lion here is fine, but it is a powerful lion and is full on in its power. Not attacking the woman behind them. They know that they are together as a pair. But that lion is not playfully interacting with the woman. The lion is standing there in front of the woman in all of its power, saying, "Come on, come at us. Because they're already joined, they're already bound, and now they are interacting with the world. And you see how the woman behind the lion is interacting with the world is not in the softest, most pastoral way. Yeah? We've got flames, a head of flaming hair. We've got rays of intellect beaming from the eyes. No, I'm sorry, not the eyes, the mouth. Oops, sorry. We've got this air flowing, streaming powerfully from the mouth. We've got a volcano in the background. Why do we have all of this fire? Especially when in the Smith-Waite deck, in the Golden Dawn tradition, this is Leo. Well, Leo would be fiery, right? But tradition says that they decided that this is Leo because, well, there's a lion. When the oldest decks, some of the oldest decks don't have a lion. They have this guy with this pillar doing a Samson, being Samson with the crumbling pillars of the temple. In this deck, from the older tradition, this is Mars. This is Mars. Which explains this fire, the exploding volcano. Very sudden, bursting fire, that burst of air coming out of the mouth. Now, Leo and Mars are not enemies. They're in the same suit. They're in the same element of fire, right? Reversed. What does this mean? Mars reversed. Mars can be playful. Mars can enjoy itself. Mars can, I'm thinking of Aries. I mean, Mars is warlike, is aggressive, but it's also competitive and can have fun if it wants to. Reversed, Mars in retrograde, for example, sometimes can cause a deflation of power. It could be an enervated state. Yeah, where we're really sensitive to things around us, which could lead to exhaustion. Have you ever felt very, very sensitive? Maybe because of a hangover, maybe not. But have you ever felt really sensitive to stimuli from around you, like to harsh light, or to even people brushing up against you in a busy place out in the world? Or sounds, loud sounds, being a little bit too much to handle? Have you ever felt that? If you have, that's what we're talking about here. Being enervated, and that causes exhaustion very quickly. Especially if you're an introvert like me. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. An extrovert presenting introvert. There are a lot of us around. But after a while of too much stimulation, I get tired. And that's what this could be as well. And we can feel that way. When we feel that, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to choose, we can get fatigued. Yeah? Our willpower can drain from us in those uncomfortable Two of Swords periods of our life, moments in our life. The conflict between the choices can drain our energy out of us. Or it could do something else. Now, Mars in retrograde can also do something very different. It can overcompensate. It can overcompensate by domineering, by imposing our will on the world, by compelling the world to match what we want. Now, the world will naturally match what we want when we evolve into being the ones who receive what we want. That's living an intentional life. But there's a big difference between opening to the power of intention and knowing that we're moving into the environments, the experiences, the relationships that we want because we are evolving into the beings who will receive those. There's a difference between that and using our willpower to make the world match what we want. And Mars in reverse, in retrograde, can move in that direction very easily. Can try to make things happen the way they want with intimidation, which repels cooperation, the cooperation that we wanted in the King of Swords, in the Two of Swords, when we find that third path. We want that cooperation, but Mars in reverse can block that from happening. So what we want to do is we want to foster circumstances where we can have collective progress forward. Because it's not only us that's moving forward, right? We're not alone in this world. Of course, there is spirit. There is the eternal being that we always are, here co-creating these human bodies that we are experiencing in the universe of physicality. But there are also other people out there that we want to move with. This is a co-creative experience, and humans are social beings, and we want to move forward together, whatever that means for each of us. A hermit in a cave is still moving together with the world cooperatively. Now, when the hermit in the cave is in their cooperative maison-scene, their cooperative place in the world, other people don't come and bother the hermit. The hermit doesn't go out and bother other people. They're cooperatively moving in parallel, uncrossing directions. Because we're always moving. Even a hermit in their cave is moving because we're on a planet in the universe, shooting through space at incredible speeds. Whether we feel them or not, we're moving forward. We're moving forward through what appears to be time. Now, time is our own construct, but we're moving forward in what appears to be time in the eternal now. And that eternal now is always shifting as we move with the powerful force of our intention. And so that's a moving forward together, collective moving forward. But this card could be that block in our path. Because we're trying too hard to make things match what we think we want them to be. In that Mars retrograde kind of way. So we got one side of perhaps losing our energy, losing our focus, losing our ability to move forward because we're just too tired and we've just feel too sensitive now. Or we overcompensate and we go, it's got to be my way, or not even the byway, my way or no way. And you're going to do what I say. Do you know people like that? Are you one of those people? Or do you know people like that? I certainly do. They're tiring to be around. If you're like that, you're tiring to be around. I hope you're not like that. But we all are at times. We might be a little bit, what do we call that? Passive-aggressive in the way we perform that, but still, even that passive-aggressiveness is a way of domineering, trying to domineer a situation, to make people and things happen the way we want it to be. And so, where do we move now? We move into, nope. Okay, sorry. So we had, this is reversed, and we move into the Hierophant. The Hierophant, beautiful card, very different from the Hierophant in the Smith-Waite deck. Now, there are no acolytes standing in front of them. This Hierophant is not standing on a podium with papal gowns and a papal cross and giving benediction on anyone. This Hierophant is flying in the universe. 2 feet on planets, in their hands, or not in their hands, but behind their hands. We got the sun on one side and the moon on the other. It's difficult to see here, but in the description for the card, the Hierophant is making a gesture. On the sun side, it's the thumbs up. On the moon side, it's the thumbs down. Perhaps showing where the energy is going, yeah? The very active sun, the energy bursting up. The less active moon, the energy flowing down. That's the way I see this. And this is, believe it or not, an Aries card, a fire card. And we see not only is the sun at the thumbs up hand, but it's also below the Hierophant here. And beneath the Hierophant, we have 2 beings, also a sun and a moon being. And we've got perhaps 4 elements here. Well, no, 4. It's not so much 4 elements, but we've got 4 discs here at the bottom. 1 looking earth, 2 looking earthy, dry and wet earth. 2 looking fiery, a solar fire being the sun, and the earth fire with a salamander. Which is interesting, and I just realized I had not considered those discs very carefully. So I'm going to skip over that and move right into what I wanted to say about the Hierophant. Being an Aries, another Martian energy, another Martian domicile. Scorpio was a Martian domicile, and here the Aries is another Martian domicile, where we had, again, Mars in the Strength card, only in retrograde. So, the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the teacher in this deck as well. But a little different from the High Priestess in this deck. This teacher is, again, the head of an institution, yeah, this head of the institution chooses the students, chooses who will be initiates into this journey of the Tarot, journey of the major arcana. Yeah? The High Priestess isn't so much of a chooser. This one is the one who says, you're in, you're out. And this one is the one who sifts. These students are going to do this thing. These students are going to do that thing. These students are going to get the deep education of the High Priestess. These students are going to be the general flock of our churchly institution. This is the one who is preparing the students to be the students and receive the wisdom of Sophia, the feminine wisdom of the trine of the divine. Now we've got the creator, monad, and then we've got Sophia, the feminine, bursting forth and shooting down and being co-creator of this physical universe, ending up in Malkut. So here we have the teacher preparing the students to learn, to get wisdom from Sophia. So what does that mean for us? Well, we could be the ones out there teaching other people, sifting our choices. But it may be that we can learn from this Hierophant, that we can learn and be prepared for that download of Sophic wisdom so that we can find that third way. This is the person, the entity in the major arcana that also transmits the mysteries, opening us to new dimensions. So this Hierophant is teaching us to open to the possibility of a third choice, or a new ways of perceiving the choices that are out there for us. Instead of reverting back to, where are you? Yeah, reverting back to this Martian retrograde energy, opening up in Aries, in that fiery burst of singularity, of single purpose, but opening up to new dimensions so that we can see new things to choose, new things to go after. So this Hierophant is, let me put this on this side. This Hierophant, this hand's getting a little tired of holding cards up. This Hierophant is in relationship with the glyphs and traditions, gathering initiates into the structure of the institution. This is the one who helps penetrate the obscurity of body. What does that mean? It helps penetrate the obscurity of body because it listens to the somatic information, the information that we get from the body, and brings it up into consciousness. It brings the unconscious up into consciousness. Now, the High Priestess is all about diving into the unconscious, right? The Hierophant, it brings the unconscious up into consciousness, which is how we can perhaps open up to more possibilities. Because there's so much information in the unconscious that we tend not to pay attention to. This one also awakens our spiritual faculties, which may seem a different direction, but really is not a different direction. Our subconscious is not the opposite of our spirit, really. It's all oneness. However, it awakens our spiritual faculties and sorts what we perceive and helps us decide when to start and when to wait. So this card is all about sorting what's out there, opening to possibilities. Determining what is for us now, what is not. Bringing up our information from within and from spirit. And that's the way to be able to do this, right? To find the third way. Just like the King of Swords can do. Does that make sense? Now, we started off with those possibilities that we can't really decide between. We know we want to find the third path. Well, hopefully now we know that we can find the third path, because neither one of these things are fully satisfying what we really wanted. So we find the third path like the King of Swords. And we want to be careful of trying to make the third path happen. Instead, we want to be open to this, to opening, to possibilities, to sifting and sorting and deciding and then moving. Not so much, and because this is Aries, it's not so much like an Aquarian thing, where you're trying to figure things out, perhaps. Or a Gemini thing, where you've got these two minds going. But an Aries thing where you perceive all the possibilities, and then you find one, and then you go. That's the one. And it could be that gut feeling that comes up, and we want to be open to that gut feeling that comes from the unconscious. It could be a spiritual download of information that helps us hone in on that other possibility and move forward single-mindedly, like an Aries would. So that's what we want to do. We've got two sets of tarot cards from two different decks helping us to get a little bit more clarity on these four cards. So let's look at the conscious realm, the realm of mind first. Here those cards are. This is my dragon deck, right? In the air, I've got a dragon deck. Makes sense, doesn't it? And even though it is a dragon deck and it is in the air, we've got all four suits and we've got the trumps as well. And in this airy, mental part of the spread, what did we see? We saw cups. We saw water up in the air. Which, of course, air, it's hot and moist, right? It's hot and wet. So really, cups and air are not so antagonistic. Fire and water. Fire is dry and hot. Water is cold and wet. Those are more opposites. But cups being cold and wet, air being hot and wet, they've got that wetness in common, right? So, what did we have? From left to right, we had the Page of Cups. I love me a Page of Cups. We have the Tower and then the Eight of Cups. Not a very happy progression of ideas. And I suppose we could move from the dark to the darkness and then into the light of the Page of Cups, but I think we should read these from left to right, because of where we just came from. We came from the Hierophant. Remember, the Hierophant was here to help us open to the unconscious, bringing the unconscious into the conscious. And why do I say that tells me that we want to read these from left to right? Well, look at this Page of Cups, for example. The Page of Cups in this deck, very different from Pamela Coleman Smith's art, where the page is all dressed up in pretty clothes, holding a beautiful chalice in front of the ocean, and on a beach. The cup has a little fish head cup poking out from the top of it, and it's all very sweet, very cute, but very land-based. There's water there in the background, and the cup is a sign of water, but this human figure is dressed in beautiful clothes, standing on solid ground. This page is not. What is this page doing? This page has dived, I think that's correct, dived into the water, where there are all these little acorn caps, which are the cups for this deck. And there is a fish coming out of one of those cups. Let me see if I can put my finger on it. Right there. Maybe you can see it, maybe you cannot. But there is a fish coming out of one of those acorn cups. And the page is looking at it going, whoa! Or maybe, hello there! And you see that the tail is here above water. We see that this tail is above water, but the page has dived down into the water, which makes me think diving into the unconscious, to bring the unconscious up. So that's where I think we want to start. We want to start with the Page of Cups. Who is the Page of Cups? Diving into the water like that. The Page of Cups is the creative one, but the young creative one, the fresh energy of creativity, of emotional creativity, emotion-based creativity, intuition-based creativity. The Page of Cups is intuitively curious, trying to find things. And that's how the page is able to see that fish coming out of a cup, is because of their curiosity. The dreamer. The young dreamer. That beautiful dreamer. Wake unto me. I'm not going to, if you want me to sing, if you want me to sing, tell me in the comments below. The Page of Cups is also sensitive, echoing that possibility of Mars in retrograde being a little too sensitive. So the Page of Cups is sensitive, which is good, but it can be a detriment if it becomes too sensitive, right? The page is poetic, beautifully poetic, sweetly poetic, probably. Now, the Knight of Cups is romantically poetic, beautifully poetic, expansively poetic. The Page of Cups is more prettily poetic, I think. And open to possibilities and intuitive messages. So, we want to be able to dive into our unconscious, and with curiosity, with sensitivity to what's down there, not being afraid of what's down there, going in with curiosity and a poetic view to see what the possibilities are, to get our intuitive hits, as we say. And that's wonderful. And then we come across the Tower. Da, 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 da. And this Tower is a little bit different from a Smith-Waite based deck. I mean, there are similarities. We've got this tower of what looks like a mountain. And there is lightning coming down. And there are these dragons flying around it. Very dark looking dragons, yeah? A little bit, perhaps, sinister, or dragons we might want to be wary of. Very different from the sweet-looking dragon in the Page of Cups. And these dragons look fierce. But the lightning coming down is hitting the top of the mountain, but the mountain doesn't look like it's crumbling. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And coming from this Page of Cups, coming from this to this, I noticed that, yes, there is a moon up there in the sky, but the darkness of this card makes me feel like it's an underwater environment. And if we go into some underwater environments we'll notice that there are some protrusions, there are some, not architectural, there are some environmental, there are some geologic structures that pierce up into the water and sometimes will catch a ship trying to pass over it and wreak havoc on its hull, right? So this made me think of an underwater scene. Yeah, we dive in with curiosity, and sometimes when we dive in, it can be a little bit scary. The tower, sudden change. Now we go into the unconscious, we start to feel what we're feeling, our emotions, and then suddenly sometimes things change. The darkness reveals itself to us. And the darkness is not a bad thing. It's not an evil thing. It's something that we have not shed light on. It's something that we have not given attention to. And I've noticed, tangent. Shadow work. I don't do shadow work. And I think I've mentioned that in other videos. I don't do shadow work, not because I'm avoiding looking at the shadows, but because I've come to discover we're not all talking about the same thing when we think of the shadow. Now there's the Freudian view and the Jungian view, and there are other views, I'm sure, but a lot of people who do shadow work seem to think of shadow in the Freudian sense, of the dark, evil things that lurk within that we need to confront. I take it more in the sense of the Jungian idea of shadow being something that has not been given attention to. And some of it could be parts of ourselves that we don't accept because they are socially unacceptable. Because they are angry, because they are irritated, because they are seeking revenge, perhaps. Or they could be wonderful glistening jewels that we were taught not to look at anymore because they're not good for us, even though they are these beautiful treasures. Some of us with psychic abilities were told, not me, but some of us with psychic abilities were told at an early age to stop talking about that. Don't think about that. It's a wonderful, beautiful gift, but they were told not to look at it, and so that beautiful jewel has gone into the shadows. Some of us had this creative urge and we drew, and then our teacher said, "What the heck is that? You can't draw." And so that treasure went into the shadow. So for me, every tarot reading is partially an excavation of the shadow in a beautiful, wonderful, expansive way. In a Jungian sense. So I don't do shadow work. I don't have a shadow dex. Because I don't see shadow in that way. I see it as things that I just haven't given my attention to. And even those things that look like scary monsters, at the core those scary monsters are our self-protection, and we want to find what's at the core of that scary monster to reveal the jewel within. So back on track. In this card, why is that important? Well, because we got these scary monsters flying around the tower, right? But those scary monsters are not necessarily scary monsters. So this card reminds us that we dive into the unconscious, and sometimes this environment, this geological formation will reveal itself to us, and we might be startled, we might be taken aback. It might feel like a sudden change or upheaval or chaotic. But that chaos is perhaps a revelation. It's perhaps an awakening. Now, this burst of light from above is not necessarily destructive in the sense of it wants to kill us, but it could be destructive in the sense of it wants to break away that shell of the cosmic egg that is holding us prisoner, that wants to be broken off, that all of that stuff that we've accreted around it ourselves, the accretions want to be broken off, sloughed off for us to move forward freely and lightly in light. Because this is light coming down. It's not a burst of darkness, it's a burst of light. It could be awakening. And some of that awakening could be a revelation of our hubris, our ego, which the Smith-Waite deck reminds us of. The Tower of Babel, hubris, the ego, trying to become like God, when we already are like God. But we try to inflate ourselves, and we inflate like the tower, and that inflation we want it to burst. So we become who we really are, not this inflated false being. So it could feel like a sudden fall. But really, it's our revelation and our awakening. Which leads us to the Eight of Cups. Here we are, the Eight of Cups, which has echoes of Smith-Waite's deck, yeah? We got these cups here, we got the dragon facing away from the cups, ready to move on. But I like this much better than the Smith-Waite for one reason. The light is so much clearer in this card. This beautiful dragon is pointed towards and ready to move in the direction of the light. Not into the dark where their home is, but into the light. That light which just came bursting down from the heavens. Right? We notice that light cracking down, and so our choice is to leave what's behind and move into the light. Leave the stuff that has crumbled off of our tower, what is it called when sediment, the sediment that has built up around us, it's cracked off and we're able to flow freely again. So, this card is often disappointment, feelings of abandonment, withdrawal. And yeah, maybe the reason we've had difficulty making choices is because what we're looking at is disappointing in some way. And so maybe we do want to abandon those choices. We want to withdraw from the need to make a choice of two things that are not completely fulfilling. We want to escape the need to choose between those, to detach from those choices, to find that third way, to go on the spiritual journey. This is also sometimes the card of spiritual journey. To go on the spiritual journey, on the following the powerful current of intention. Go on that spiritual journey to discover that third possible choice. And I'm just using the three as opposed to the two on either side, the two opposing choices. And those two could be 3, 4, or 5. But the other choice, the choice that brings everything that we want together. Without forcing that choice to manifest, but discover and move towards it. So that's where we want our mind to be. We want to be able to dive into the unconscious with clear vision. And when we notice that tower is there, the tower is there and not be afraid of it, to really inspect what's there, and when that lightning comes, see it. See that cracking in of spirit, and then in the Eight of Cups, follow it. follow it fresh and clean and having sloughed off what has accreted in the direction of what we really want. That's an interesting reading, isn't it? Now we've got another line of cards in the material realm. Let's take a look at those. Beautiful cards, right? These are the more earthy animals from a sister deck to the dragon deck that we just saw. And what did we get in this earthy suit? The material, the body, the somatic, what we do in the world, what we manifest, what we create, the work that we do. And we started off with a beautiful fox in the Ten of Wands, and then a beautiful raven or a crow in the King of Swords. Another King of Swords, right? That was important. And then we moved into the Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands, which is a fire card. Beautiful, beautiful cards, beautiful decks. We'll go left to right. That's the way these two sets of cards seem to want to be read. We'll start with the Ten of Wands. Now, different from Pamela Coleman Smith's deck, where we've got that person carrying those 10 wands in front of them. We see their home out in the distance, not too far, but because we can see it, but we're not there yet. And the figure is usually looking very tired, very burdened. And that's one of the keywords for that card, is burden. Here we have a beautiful fox with 10 sticks in front of them, but this fox has decided to take a rest, take a break, to take a nap. They're safe. They look very safe. But they're tired. Because this is the burdened card, the exhausted card, the card of hard work and fatigue. So this sweet little fox has tuckered itself out. But it has done the smart thing, has taken a break, has taken a rest. And that reminds us of that strength card reversed, that we could feel it too sensitive and our will, our energy may have drained out. And this card is here to remind us that we can take a break. We can allow ourselves to rest. Sometimes these cards, the Tens of Wands, are asking us to push through, to get to the end before we may take a break. This one is saying, look, you're tired, take a break now. At least that's the way it looks to me, which makes sense. Because if we take a break, then we can move right into here, this beautiful raven of the King of Swords. Lovely. We got these butterflies flying around. We got this beautiful golden crown on their head. We got the sword stuck into the tree. Reminiscent of, echoing a little bit, Pamela Coleman Smith's card with the king with a crown sitting on a throne with the sword in their hand. Ravens don't have hands, but with the sword in their hand and these birds flying in the air. Instead of birds, we have, I think these are monarch butterflies. Butterflies are hope. So this card is the card of mental clarity, right? Intellectual power, analytical mind, truth-telling and truth-seeing and far-reaching vision, which we can't do if we're too tired to do it, right? So take a break. Take a nap if we need to, so that we can re-embody our King of Swordsness, which we wanted to do in that central message of the card, right? In the central message of the central set of cards of the spread. That's the English I was trying to say. We want to be able to do this, so we might need to take a break. We might need to take a nap in the physical world so that our bodies can be ready to do the work of the choosing and discovering the third path. This card can also be sternness, but orderly and authority. Not the authority of the reversed strength card, which was tyrannical, forcing people to do what you want, manipulating people to do what you want, imposing your will on people. Not that. Authority of truth, authority of this is what is truth, knowing your truth, owning the truth. And that truth being your power, and your ability to communicate that truth being your superpower. The ability to see that truth, giving you authority. And when we own our King of Swords, being able to see the direction of our powerful current of intention, where can we go? We can go into this beautiful, beautiful Queen of Wands. Lovely, lovely queen. Got a crown on this queen too, right? She's got her branch, her wand of power, her scepter of power leaning on her shoulder. Got a butterfly in this one too, don't we? Yes, we got a couple of monarch butterflies here, but we've also got our sunflowers. And instead of a black cat at her feet, like Pamela Coleman-Smith's deck has, she's got her little cub right there and she's holding her cub in her tail, and she's there in her power and in her majesty. And remember, we are all hers and we are all hims. Whether we are in male bodies, in female bodies, in cis bodies, in trans bodies, in non-binary perceiving bodies, we are all hises and herses and themses. Themses. My new word, themses. So, this Queen of Wands, you, I, are hers in this card, and we are majestic. We can rediscover our majesty, our fiery majesty. This is the card of courage, the card of confidence and independence. Now, the king is the leader of other people, is out being the boss, not like the boss, like you do this, but the boss, the leader, the one who is so powerful that people follow. Is so charismatic that people follow. Well, she's charismatic too, but the queen is independent. The queen's going to do her own thing. Not going to wait for other people to follow her. People probably will follow her, but she's not going to wait for people to follow her. She's not there to lead people. She's there to do her thing. And that's us too. That's finding that third path. Because she's self-assured. She knows that she can do what she wants. She's determined. Not the determination of that strength reversed where everything's got to be what I want, what I say. I'm going to make it happen. Not that kind of determination. It's just the determination to, I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to move with my powerful flow of intention. I'm going to be creative. I'm determined to live the life I want to live. I'm not determined to make the life happen because it's not happening the way I want it to. I'm determined to live the life I want to live. I'm creative. I'm passionate. I'm also sexually active. If I'm interested in it, that doesn't mean you can be asexual and still be a Queen of Wands. You can be a religious person, a person who has taken the vow of celibacy and still be passionate and still be sexual. Can use that sexual energy, that sexual libido in interactions with people and still not have actual sex with people. Does that make sense? Can you wrap your mind around that? Our sexual energy is not only bumping genitals together or genitals and other body parts together. There are other ways of flowing our sexual energy into the world creatively, passionately. And that's this Queen of Wands. Also sex, if that's your thing, but also sex, not only sex. And sex is a beautiful thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but some of us are not, some of you out there, I know, are not interested in it, probably. And you don't have to be. That's not what, this queen is not here trying to shame you because you're not doing what she thinks you should do. That's not what this is about. We all have our sexual energy, whether we express it in the pasting together of body parts or whether it's another way. And that's how we navigate that Two of Swords. Having the mental clarity of the King of Swords and the courageous, confident, independent creativity, passionate creativity of the Queen of Wands. And that's how we live our best intentional lives, isn't it? And we can get there. And we might want to take a break. Our bodies may be telling. Remember, the Hierophant listens to the body. The Hierophant listens to the body. And brings the unconscious into the conscious. So take a nap if we need to. Better than trying to overcome our tiredness by trying to bang what we want into place. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 advice cards. Let's take a look at those advice cards. Here they are. I like these cards a lot. They're beautiful cards, and they're from 2 different decks, both dragon decks. And again, that information will be at the end of this video, coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's look at the advice. We had on the left side of the spread, we had this card, which is Actramis. And then on the right side, we had this card, which is Bliss. Beautiful cards, very different, but they're speaking together to give us advice about this spread. And we're going to start with Actramis. But first, let's do a really, really quick recap of how we got here. Yeah? So we started with the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords reminded us that there are times when we have difficulty making a decision, and we went deeply into that and noticed that we could possibly want to be open to the possibility of a third choice, something that really matches what we want, something that just says yes to us. And to be able to do that, we want to be the King of Swords, which gives us the vision and is able to negotiate and to be careful about the way that we listen to ourselves and others and find the truth, discover, to mine the truth for ourselves before we talk about it or act in the world. And as we do that, we notice that we could be Mars in retrograde if we are either becoming tired or too sensitive because we haven't been able to make a choice that makes us happy yet, or we overcompensate for that tiredness and try to force things to happen. Don't want to do that. And so we move into the Hierophant, which reminds us that we want to be open to receiving information, to winnowing the grain from the chaff, but being open to what is there from both the unconscious and spirit. And being able to open ourselves to learning the wisdom of Sophia. And so in the mental sphere, we want to consciously dive into the unconscious. Notice that there could be some scary stuff there, but allow ourselves to be present to it, and notice when there's an incracking of spiritual light, and we notice that and we follow the light. And then in the working everyday world around us, in our earthy selves, we notice that we might be a little bit tired by this. We might need to take a nap so that we can rediscover our inner King of Swords, which is able to have mental clarity, make decisions, be analytical and truth, be authority, be our own authority, so that we can be the Queen of Wands, the creative, independent one, which is the one who's able to create that third choice that we want to be open to discovering. And so, on either side, we have these two cards. Artemis, Actramis, not Artemis, beautiful goddess from the Greek pantheon, Artemis, which is Diana in the Roman pantheon, but has nothing to do with this. Here we have Actramis, the galactic peacekeeper. Now, this deck is all about interdimensional dragons. So personally, I am not such I don't worry myself too much about how many dimensions are out there and what dimension is spiritual. That's neither here nor there, because ultimately it's all just oneness. And that's the truth that I want to hold within me. There's just the oneness of the monad, which is not separate from us, which is who we are, where we are, when we are. And yet, this deck is reminding us that there is this galactic peacekeeper, Artemis, who is more evolved. Seventh dimension is what the book says. More evolved, psychically, spiritually, and physically. So he's in a more, he, she, it, them are in a more evolved psycho-spiritual somatic state. Psycho-spiritual somatic. Psycho. Spiritual. Somatic state. Body, mind, spirit. But in more evolved. So, this card is here to remind us that the time is now for us to evolve. Which is, I think, part of that realization of the third path. It's an evolutionary path. We want to slough off the encrusted layers of our current state to release the new beings that we are becoming. And I typed that out for myself because I wanted to say that exactly in that way. Let me say it again. The time is now for us to evolve. We want to slough off the encrusted layers of our current state so to release the new beings that we are becoming. The evolution, which was what I was pointing at when looking at that Tower card in the area of air, mind. We want to move toward greater coherence. Body, mind, heart, mind. Do you know Heart Math? Heart Math is a wonderful organization which focuses on the biological and psychosomatic alignment or coherence of heart and mind to become more open and healthy beings in the physical universe. So I'd suggest checking out Heart Math if that's something you're interested in. Anyways, so we want to move toward greater coherence, greater clarity of our vibration by letting go. It's that stuff that we're carrying, the burdens that made us tired in the Ten of Wands, that causes incoherence, that causes, what was that other word I used? Coherence, but also obscurity, non-clarity of our vibration. Yeah, so we want to let that go, which is part of that sloughing off the layers that have encrusted around us. And perhaps it's those layers of things of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and scared to, nervous to, unworthy tos that have built up around us that have made us move into the situation where we've got these two choices that we think that are the only choices, and neither of them are fulfilling, absolutely fulfilling to us, so we can't make a choice. So that's evolve. That's the first part of advice. And how do we evolve? What do we evolve to? Is discard, bliss. Yeah, Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. I say, become your bliss. That's what we're evolving into, becoming the bliss. It's not something out there that we want to follow. We want to be it. And as we become our bliss, we are moving with the powerful flow of intention. Now, bliss is, what is bliss? Bliss is perfection. It is the purpose of our being here in these bodies. We are here to be blissed out. And I'm not speaking of pharmaceutically created blissed out, but we are here to be blissed out as awake conscious beings in these bodies, in this universe. Our purpose is our bliss. Our sole purpose is our bliss. And so that's what we're evolving into, our bliss. It's also an open alignment of our chakras and being fully open to the power of intention. It's an opening, right? Our bliss is our opening. Like the tower cracking open, it's an opening and an alignment. That alignment that we discovered, that we mentioned in this card. Yeah, the coherence, clearer vibration, alignment. That is our bliss. It's also something that we not only are becoming, but something that we transmit into the world. And you've seen people talking about their experience of encountering holy people, right? There's this wonderful, wonderful woman in India who is called the Hugging Saint. And she hugs everyone that she interacts with. She hugs everyone she encounters. And that's one way to express it. But other people who have come into the presence of who they believed to be holy people felt that transmission of bliss, of awakening, of enlightenment, to become light, to become the light beings that we are. We're born. Before we came into these bodies, and what we will be after we leave these bodies, and who we are in these bodies, is that light. And we're not talking about like a flashlight light or a candle light. Those are just metaphors. But spiritual light, non-physical light. That's who we are. So bliss is becoming that. And we want to be sure that we don't confuse ourselves with excitement or even happiness when we talk about bliss. Bliss is not excited. Bliss is calm. Bliss is peaceful. It may not even look happy, because it's beyond that. Happiness, and especially excitement, is a release from the negative. It's a kind of refreshing crack. The moment of cracking open or the moment of release can be exciting. Release from boredom can be exciting. Release from sadness can be exciting. Make us feel happy. But that's temporary. It's part of a wave. The bliss is a constant state. It's a clear state. It's a coherent state. It's not one of great fluctuations. Now, there are going to be fluctuations because it's alive, it's living. But compared to other states of emotion, of energy, it looks flat. It's like looking at sandpaper when next to a mountain range? Which one looks flat? I mean, does a piece of sandpaper look like it's got ups and downs, or it looks flat when we're holding those two together? Now, we hold sandpaper up against perhaps clear plastic, and yes, now the clear plastic looks flat and the sandpaper looks bumpy. But if we took a microscope to what looks like really, really flat, smooth plastic, we'd notice that it's not flat or smooth, that there are ridges in the plastic as well. So it's all about perspective. So, by perspective, bliss would be the ultimate smooth sailing, which from our daily lives might look a little bit boring, but it's not. And when we get in there, we'll notice that there is vibration. But it's an imperceptible vibration from someone living in anxiety or angst or boredom or dissatisfaction or anger. It just looks flat until you get there and you stay there for a while and you become that. Then you'll notice the slight variations, the gently rocking waves on the ocean, as opposed to the stormy, turbulent typhoons and tidal waves that are towards the other end of the spectrum. Now, spectrums don't really have ends, or that are in the other direction from a general midpoint of satisfaction. Does that make sense? I hope so. It took a long time to explain that. I hope that makes sense. So that's what we want to evolve into. And as we evolve into that, those third choices, those third possibilities, the multiplicity of possibilities are going to reveal themselves to us. That's living the intentional life. And every one of these spreads that I lay out on a weekly basis, my question is, do you remember? Say it for me. My question is, how can we live this week? How can we live more intentional lives this week? That's the way we do it. Evolve. It's time to evolve into our bliss. And then when we notice those Two of Swords moments, we notice that we're not there yet. That's okay. That's okay, because we evolve. And we've got the Hierophant here to help us. And we've got ways to do it. This is a wonderful spread. It's a beautiful spread. And it's a spread that gives us signposts. When we encounter that, when we encounter those choices, we know there's a little bit of work for us to do. And we have some tools to take advantage of. This is a wonderful spread. I love it. I hope you loved it too. If you did, hit the thumbs up button so that YouTube knows that you liked this and other people might like it too. It'll draw more eyes to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up, and the alarm bell so that you get notifications of when I upload videos. Make sure that you do get those notifications. Some people have those notifications turned off. I usually do 2 videos a week. Sometimes I do a third. This week I had a third video up, an unboxing of some facsimile decks from Deviant Moon. If you haven't seen that, you might want to check that out. And there will be another video coming out this week. So hit the alarm bell so that you get notifications. And a comment below. I would really love it if you reacted to this. What do you think? How do you manage those Two of Swords moments? What do you do? Do you have some methods, some insight into what we can do that might be different from or perhaps parallel to this spread? It would be wonderful to hear from you. We can teach each other and learn from each other as we continue working through our intentional lives. So comment below. And if you are interested in these decks, again, there will be a short video in just a moment. And remember, there are links below. And if you want a private reading from me, My email address is below. Shoot me an email and let me know that you want a reading. It could be short, it could be long, it could be Rider-Waite Smith based, it could be Tarot de Marseille based. Anything is possible. So many possibilities. So many third ways available to us. So send me an email to thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. We'll work out a reading for you. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.